There.
Commissioner Marecki. Commissioner Baidoon has requested an excuse.
Yes, he has.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Vice Chair Colleen.
I'm here.
Chair Baker McCormick has also requested an excuse. You have a quorum present.
Yes, she did. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Back in the saddle.
B, Chair's remarks.
None today. Thank you.
C, approval of the November 7th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Motion and support. Any additions, corrections, changes to the previous minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. All right, passes unanimous. What do we have next, Madam Clerk?
D, unfinished business. There is none listed.
Okay, let's move on then.
Item 1, under new business, requesting commission approval of a cooperative operational agreement with Wayne County Healthy Communities to create a co-applicant community health center board for the operation of the county's 2 federally qualified health centers in the cities of Hamtramck and Wayne.
Okay. Somebody from Healthy Communities or to discuss this item? I can't hear you. Well, here, come to the table. It's easier. I hope you know how to use our mics.
This is Boitia Stevens on behalf of Corporation Counsel. In the meantime, whilst we're waiting for someone from HHPS, I can fill in.
Yeah, well, I
whatever
kind of have corporate
information.
counsel.
Sure.
Haven't we done this already? They've been up and running for a long time.
Yes, exactly.
So why are we seeing this now? Do you have to renew it or what?
Yes, it's a renewal. That's all it is.
It's just a renewal?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right. Questions from committee members? I'll take a motion.
Which one do you want to read?
Don't make me make the call.
I'll move approval on number 1.
Sorry.
I'll support it.
All right. It's been moved by Commissioner Anderson, supported by Commissioner Marecki. All in favor of item 1 under new business, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All righty, that passes. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Item 2, requesting commission approval of Amendment 1 to a 3-year grant agreement with the 2-year option to renew with United Way for Southeastern Michigan to adhere to Michigan Child Care in-home program and services match for providing prevention services for at-risk youth in Wayne County.
Ready? Good afternoon. Name and title for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Melissa Fernandez, Director of Juvenile and Youth Services. This is our request for our amendment with our contract with United Way. It is revising and changing the state reimbursement from 50/50 to 75/25. There's no change in funding.
Wow. Well, if there's no change in funding, what?
There's no change in the amount that's being funded for
States.
Okay, but our share is now only
Correct.
25.
correct.
Okay. Questions on item number 2?
I'll move approval.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Marecki, supported by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Cheat money. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, what's next?
Item 3, forwarding notification of an emergency procurement report for a contract with Canfield Equipment Service to retrofit 2 Ford F-250 transport vans for juvenile transport to and from the juvenile detention facility until the criminal justice complex opens.
Okay, items 3, 4, and 5, we'll take them separate, but they're all related to emergency procurements for the Justice Center. A few questions were sent over to the department. And so I hope somebody's here with answers to those questions. Name and titles again, please.
Melissa Fernandez, Director of Juvenile and Youth Services.
Okay. a couple of things.
Will say, Director of Health and Human Services.
Yeah, you know how to work the mic, right?
Dr. Abdullah Sayed,
There we go.
Director of Health, Human and Veteran Services.
Thank you. So, on all three of these, Commission Council has said that, these are in violation of, emergency procurements because of the 60-day submission. My understanding, if I'm correct, is that the public health emergency over there ended on the 5th of June. And these three were all submitted on the 5th of June. Section 121-122, the procurement ordinance, which in part states a written determination by using agency of the basis for an emergency for the selection of particular contractor shall be provided to the purchasing department, the Wayne County Commission, and including the contract file within 60 days of an emergency procurement. So the request was June 5th, and now we're beyond the 6th. So two things about this. How does this conform to the well, wait a minute. Commission Counsel, do you want to say something before we go into questions? No? Just read what you wrote. Huh?
It was technically in the policy analysis.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, I got you. So how does this conform to the emergency procurement ordinance? We have a disagreement as to whether it does or not. Well, maybe she does now.
Through the chair to this honorable body, Council Johnson, just for clarification, as we all know, emergency procurements are authorized under the procurement ordinance to address immediate threats to health, safety, and welfare, so that provision of the procurement ordinance allows the administration to go out and contract for services without coming to the commission because it is considered an emergency, again, a threat to address a public health issue, safety concern. And so the procurement ordinance says because these contracts would normally come to the commission, but they are letting them and awarding them or pursuing them because of an emergency and they don't have time to come to the commission, they must submit those contracts to this body for informational purposes within 60 days of actually awarding or issuing that contract. So it's not based on the public health order, and the date of the public health order is based on the date that the contract was actually let or awarded by the department. I don't know the dates in this instance, but I just want to be clear on what we're referring to. So they just simply, my understanding, didn't submit the items to this body for information. So you will be aware that these contracts that would normally require your approval, but were let because of an emergency basis, they simply didn't submit to the time frame within the ordinance. I'll also give additional background and say, I want to say it was last year or 2 years ago, this provision was 30 days. And because of some after conversations with the procurement department and understanding how it was difficult for them to get these documents to us in 30 days, that length of time was extended to 60. And then that's all I'll add.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, then I want to look at dates then to see if we are within the 60 days. And what are the crucial dates there? When does the 60-day clock start? Okay. The contract was awarded commission staff on what date?
First one, June 15th.
Awarded June 15th.
Number 3.
July 15th, August 15th is 60 days. More or less. 30 days has September. I'm close.
Yeah. That's November.
Because the question is then, are we within the 60 days? Commissioner Barecki,
According to this, under the preliminary concerns, the contract was June 15th, 2023. It was submitted to the commission on October 2nd, which is 74 days from the date of the contract till it reached the commission. So this is the first one, is 74 days. Number three.
Oh, no, I can't feel.
okay, so we're not there for the 60 days?
Could I add, yes? something
Commissioner
too?
Marecki, of course.
And I'm also wondering why we need an emergency procurement to retrofit
Yeah.
2 Ford F-250 transport vans.
Well, let's get to that. That's a question I have also, but I want to make sure we have this 60-day because there was some discussion about getting paperwork, I believe, from all three of these vendors, which took some time. So, does commission staff have all of the paperwork that this was held up for? Go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Chris, identify yourself.
Chris Albrecht, Policy and Analyst for the Wayne County Commission. I'm scrolling through the analysis here to check our document table. It does appear that yes, in this instance, for this emergency procurement report for the contract with Canfield Equipment Service, that we did receive all of the required documentation.
So that eventually came in. So it's just the 60 days that we need to deal with. Any disagreement that we're outside of the 60 days?
So if you look at when the purchase order was fully executed for this retrofit through Canfield, that date is September 11th, 2023.
It's who?
That date was September 11th, 2023. And we submitted it on September 15th of 2023. And while I fully 100%, we aim every time to meet these requirements. The challenge, of course, is that to submit our paperwork, we have to have all the forms available. The hard part about emergency procurement is you do that under the duress of an emergency. And so oftentimes we will withhold executing a contract for a particular set of goods until we have all of our paperwork in hand, which would be right and proper, of course. But in the setting where you need what it is that you're procuring and it is an emergency to get it, oftentimes you're not going to hold up your process of actually getting what you're procuring until you have the paperwork, which then creates a disincentive to actually filling all this paperwork for the supplier. And so these suppliers will sit on the paperwork. And so our team spent a lot of time trying to get all of this paperwork on the back end, but we weren't willing to withhold procuring what it was that we needed until we had that paperwork. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of an emergency. So I share that to say that while we aim always to meet the requirements of this process, oftentimes what happens is we are then backpedaling to get all the paperwork. That takes time. They have no incentive to get us the paperwork because we've already, from their mind, done the business that we had to do. And so the paperwork becomes a second order question. And so we're waiting and waiting, email after email. And so oftentimes that makes it a lot harder to get to the 60 days. And I fully appreciate Commission Counsel's perspective that this was changed for 60 days to make up the time. And we appreciate that. The hard part, though, is that it's very difficult to try and get them to do paperwork on our timeline. And so this will delay our ability to actually get all the paperwork in. If you look at one of these contracts in particular, the deal with Stevens, we couldn't even get at the end after months of trying our FE Fair Employment Practice certificate, which is something we usually require. And that's because from their end, they said, all right, we've already done this transaction. We're not going to fill out this extra paperwork for you. So good luck. Right. And so, what I'm trying to show is why it's taken so long, right? Because we want to have a complete contract to be able to submit in time.
Yeah. Counsel, do you want in now? I have another question on that.
I do. So a couple points of clarification and probably a point for future discussion. One, the date of the PO is not necessarily the date the contract was awarded.
Okay.
Based on the way that the process works internally. So I don't know how we as a staff actually determine that actual date of award. I assume we asked someone, but I'm not sure. So that's something for us to determine. But I think there's a fundamental concern that was just pointed out here, which is our ordinance says that you submit the complete file to this body within 60 days. But again, based on how the process works, that appears not to be always feasible. We've heard it before, and some of it is outside the county's control based on the contractors. So then the question becomes, do we potentially create a two-step process? And I'm just talking off the top of my head, so everybody forgive me, whereby they actually immediately submit some type of letter just saying we are in the process of procuring X, and then later submit the actual documentation. That gives you one notice that a contract was awarded to a certain vendor under the emergency basis without your approval, but you at least have the immediate notice, which could be done within a week or two, I would imagine. And then the contract package or information follows. Again, more work because it's two submittals, but it at least will give this body sufficient timely notice. So just something for everyone to consider and think about, and perhaps we can have further discussions with procurement to sort of see if there are other tweaks that can be made to make this work better for both sides.
And to commission,
Hang on, thanks, Counselor, because you kind of go where I was going. We changed from 30 to 60 days because of communication with administration around the difficulties around the 30-day. But here, we didn't have any communication, as you suggest, right? A little letter that says, hey, we're in the process of this and we're trying to get all of the appropriate paperwork and everything before you. And since we don't have that, we're left with what we have today.
But that's not required, so that's why they didn't submit.
No, I understand
okay.
that. But I think this isn't the first time we've talked about emergency procurements. There was one conversation that said, let's go from 30 to 60. Commission said, cool, let's do it. It does seem like we need to have, to conform with what we have, we might need to add a little something like that, that these things don't come kind of as a surprise after deadlines have passed, without any communication with administration to say, hey, this is what's going on. Mr. El Sayed, you wanted to make a comment? Okay.
no, I mean, I think to commission council's point, if we sent an unfully executed purchase order to this body for
Yeah.
verification, that would cause some consternation. And
Yeah,
given that we never got it until September 11th, and then we submitted it 4 days later, you know, from our perspective, that is the best possible turnaround we could offer. So,
well, we do have murkiness here, and I just like murkiness in public contracting. Probably the biggest job outside of the budget that this commission have is to be on top of the procurement ordinance, because that's how all the money gets spent. So I think we do need to do something there. There is some murkiness here. Commissioner Marecki, you had other questions on this one?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to know why this was an emergency to counter, to retrofit two Ford trucks.
so this is part of two parts of a contract. The only way to understand this is that we had also contracted for those two Ford trucks and then had to have them retrofitted to be able to use them for the purposes that we need them for. And this is a real serious challenge at JDF because we need to be able to move residents to and from various places. And we were relying in large part on the sheriff's office for some of that transport, and the sheriff's office could not always do that on the timeline that we needed. So the ability to do that required us to have the infrastructure, and that was actually getting trucks to be able to do this. And that facilitates everything from moving kids to courts, right, where they can have timely court dates, to moving them across various positions. So, for example, we housed several of our residents at Genesee County, for example, and waiting for MEO, the WCSO to provide that transit delays time to open up a position so that another resident could take up that space. So you can imagine how the inability to move youth on our own slows down our operations, and was a critical piece to being able to solve.
So, excuse me. So we already had the trucks. You needed, oh,
We purchase the trucks
You
and then
actually-
retrofit them.
okay, so.
And just, you're
all
seeing
together.
one, yeah, you're seeing one piece of that. But the only way to properly understand it is in the context of purchase trucks and then retrofit them.
So did we use an emergency procurement to get the trucks?
We did.
Did that come through us?
We've got two more coming next week. I'm not sure if that one came through yet or if
Okay.
that's next meeting.
Okay, I don't remember that because I would have asked why that was an emergency.
Yeah, that's news to me too.
Okay. All right, so we
But-
should see those soon.
Yeah, I hope I've answered why this was a critical operational need.
Mhm. But I mean, we'll see the purchase of those trucks probably coming in soon. Okay, thank you.
I'm sure you can appreciate we're seeing a contract to retrofit trucks that we haven't approved to purchase yet. Or saw the emergency procure. How do we move, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner
That's
Anderson.
okay. That's okay. I just was going to ask a little bit of, I guess, in the weeds as far as the vehicles, what retrofit took place? Was it, because I would assume they were purchased with seating, correct?
Correct. The
So- Securing the passengers and the transport of those individuals?
correct. The retrofit provides that secure cells
Or whatever.
and correct.
What about who will do the transporting?
So currently our direct care staff that are trained in transporting do the transports on hospital runs, on appointments and things like that. So the same staff will continue to do that.
So they're not law enforcement of it?
They are not.
Okay. Should that be a concern?
For our young people who are life offenders, law enforcement will transport. For any other juvenile, they do not transport.
Okay, all right. I just be concerned about, the safety of them and the safety of the public too. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. How do we transport folks before we purchase these two vans? That
Sure.
I'll find about later.
We had and have one vehicle, one van that was severely outdated and needed a ton of repairs. So we did have one vehicle and we relied on the Wayne County Sheriff's quite a bit. They also are short-staffed and can't accommodate all of our transport requests.
Well, I hope you can get into a little explanation of that when we see the apparently still coming on this. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners on this? What's the pleasure of the committee? It's been moved to receive and file and supported. And go ahead, Commissioner Anderson. Yeah.
One last quick comment. Is it a possibility of getting retired sheriff deputies?
Hmm.
Has anyone thought about that? Because I would assume they would still be licensed to carry if they needed to.
It's not a conversation that we've had, but we certainly can look into that.
I would think there would be some that would be willing to do that because it's not like it's a 5-day-a-week job, right? It'd be on demand like that or on request. Yeah. That's all. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Marecki?
Thank you. Melissa, you mentioned the life offenders.
Yes.
Are these kids with the raise the age and everything, these kids have been deemed to stay where they are?
Correct. So a life offender is you've been adjudicated or you have a charge of someone that would serve a significant amount of time in the adult system. So they might not be raised at age. They might be a 15-year-old life offender with a pretty significant offense.
So at that point, they're still considered life offenders?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Whatever they are. All right, thank you.
Okay, we're back to the motion on the floor, which is to receive and file, properly moved and supported. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All righty, thank you. Madam Clerk, on to item 4.
Item 4, forwarding notification of an emergency procurement report for a purchase order with Imperial Day DBA Ally Eagle Supply to provide goods as needed, including but not limited to janitorial supplies for the juvenile detention facility.
And this one, so it's a receive and file, and this one has the same murkiness around dates. We really need to clear that up. I don't want to have that conversation every time we get a procurement. So if it's a problem in how things are written, then let's rewrite them and get it right. So this item 4, what are we looking at here for juvenile detention facility?
Item 4 is and all of our maintenance supplies.
Okay, didn't we just see another procurement a few months ago from them? Same kind of idea? Maybe it was some other things you needed other than janitorial. Okay,
There was a sheriff's office item.
Huh?
recently. There was a,
Chris Albrecht, policy analyst for the Wayne County Commission. There was a sheriff's office item recently with the same vendor.
I see. Okay. Juvenile detention facility, jail, what, okay. Real good. Question from commissioners on this item. Pleasure of the committee.
Move approval.
Receive and file. Yeah.
Yeah.
Support.
It's been moved to receive and file. Item 4. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're moving the agenda on to the next one. Madam Clerk?
Item 5, forwarding notification of an emergency procurement report for a purchase order with Walter F. Stevens Jr. Inc. for mattresses, hygiene items, clothing, and other similar goods for the juvenile detention facility.
Okay, does this one, along with the last one, are we like stocking up, kind of getting ready for opening day? Is that what these are doing, or is this for the current facility?
This is catching up. Remember, this was all in the context of the emergency. And so a lot of this was about catching up with what wasn't available and making sure that we had stock and that we could have ready access to stock so we never ran out.
Okay. Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. When something like this happens, looks like we haven't had a contract with this Walter Stevens Jr. Incorporated, at least before 2018. How do you pick someone that we haven't even had a contract with? I mean, how do you know and just choose this when there's no bidding, there's no anything?
I believe the sheriffs have a contract with this vendor, and so we use a lot of the same vendors. We procure from Bob Barker and other correctional vendors, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know.
That's how you heard of this company?
No.
Okay.
Is that kind of a regular conversation where you call the sheriff and say, hey, we need this in JDF. Do you have a contractor in the jail that does this stuff? Is that a regular conversation?
I know since I have been with the county, that's a regular conversation that I've had because of some of the challenges that I found at the detention facility.
Okay, cool. Questions, comments, Commissioner Anderson?
Just going back to the same area that those mattresses, I just wondered if we've ever explored a state purchase program or between other counties to save money. And I mean, I remember when my son was checking in at Michigan State, and they even buy those extra long mattresses. And I would assume this is one of those extra long mattresses. So I'm thinking there's got to be some savings by quantity and getting in on a purchase program with maybe the state or other counties.
It's something we can certainly look into.
Okay, yeah, good. Thank you.
Before I call for a motion on this, as long as you guys are here, the state is providing funding for what, an additional 200 beds around the state to move. There was an article in the paper a couple days ago. I believe the number they used was 200. Was that the number in the article? Whether it's accurate or not, was that the number?
I believe that was. the
Yeah,
number.
so where does that leave us? Because they did mention our folks out in Highland Park who have an additional 20 beds.
So I'd like to clarify. So Highland Park has 160 beds. They're only using 72 beds as of today. There were 72 beds because again, they can't staff that. What the state did do was they were able to open rite of passage in Macomb County, and those 20 beds are for Wayne County youth. We have started using.
That's the 20.
That's the 20, right. We started moving youth there 2 weeks ago, and we've moved 5 as of today. And we have 15 ready to go. Of course, they want to gradually admit those kids.
And that facility is where?
It's in Macomb. It's on the Macomb County Complex in Macomb, Michigan. The Macomb
Right.
County Juvenile Detention.
Is that the whole complex off Gratiot there?
It's on Rose Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Long way to go for and for any families, right? So what's the issue in Highland Park?
I believe they can't find the staff to secure 160 beds. That's the
Wow.
challenge. So more than half of their facility is empty.
And after this 20 is satisfied, how much other room do we, I mean, the same thing with mental health beds, right?
Correct.
Everybody's like, yeah, we need more mental health beds. And hospitals are obligated to say, we have this many mental health beds available. And then when you need one, you call them and they go, oh, no, we really don't. We're using that as a medical bed instead. And that's been a real issue. So where are we at in terms of our needs for moving folks out of our JDF? What's available to us?
So today, we have 108 kids at JDF. About half of those are waiting for secure placement. 20 are moving out to rite of passage. And at this point, the only alternative is Spectrum. There are 2 state facilities.
Spectrum, right.
Correct. There are 2 state facilities that are at capacity with 40 beds apiece. So the only alternative right now is Spectrum. If they could staff those beds, we would be able to move kids out.
Is there also a funding problem from the state that goes with this?
There is no funding problem. The state increased their rate, the county matched that increase.
So just like with a lot of other places around the criminal justice system, hiring people is the issue. Okay. All right. Back to the item on the agenda. Thank you for that. So this is item 5. What's the pleasure of the committee? Yeah, this is the mattress and hygiene items.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to receive and file. Any last questions, comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Madam Clerk, what's next on the agenda?
Item 6, requesting commission approval of Amendment 3 to a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options to renew with Black Family Development to adjust the funding match for the Youth Assistance Program, Judicial System Prevention Services for at-risk children and adolescents to serve more youth based on past utilization.
Okay, and this is the same with item 7.
It is the same with item 7. However, we are increasing the contract budget to serve more youth that are coming through Black Family Development.
Right. And this is separate. I think, didn't we just go through last month or the month before all the YAP contracts,
We did.
youth assistance programs? So this allows us to increase capacity
Correct.
and so we're putting more kids into this if we need to increase capacity.
That is correct.
So what is that trajectory like? Where does this come from that we need extra space for this?
Sure. With the state of Michigan Task Force on Juvenile Justice Reform, more kids are being encouraged to remain in the community with supports. And so that's where that 75% comes
Yeah.
to encourage that. And so we're also working closely with the court to really take a look at what kids are coming to detention. And so the court is really looking closely at every single case. We work with them weekly and understanding that status offenders shouldn't be in JDF. And how do we treat youth increase? in
Well, that's
community
been
care?
since the county took over juvenile services around 2000.
Okay.
That's kind of been a fundamental part of what we're doing, right? That you get better outcomes and it's less expensive to keep kids in the community and not incarcerate them.
Yes.
So who makes the call here then? Do we petition the court to say we would like to have home placement for this? Or does the court say, no, we want to send that kid home? Well, how does that work?
Sure. It's the court, it's the CMO, it's us. It's a number of different entities based on charges, based on offenses, based on prevention, diversion. There are so many different entities that that go into making that decision.
So do you sit as a group with the judge?
We do. I actually meet with the
And then
judges.
everybody discusses that I'll have a piece of this
That
with the
is-
judge and say, this is what we recommend, and then the judge either says yay or nay.
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
Also, I was just wondering, do we regularly get reports on recidivism and their effectiveness of these programs?
We do, and actually our annual report is due in March that will have all of that data in there.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll get to you in just a sec, Commissioner Marecki. Is that the chief judge in the juvenile courts that you meet with?
Presiding Judge Miller,
Presiding judge, Judge Miller.
correct.
It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have Judge Miller come talk to this committee too, to get that viewpoint. And we're better commissioners when we have full discussion and know all the players involved and that kind of stuff. Okay, Commissioner Marecki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this contract ends September 30th, 2025, and there's no more options to renew. So what are all of these coming to the end
Yes.
of their, so you're going to put it out for bid again?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
It will be forbid?
Yes.
Okay. I will consider a motion on both items 6 and 7. They both increase capacity in the YAP programs.
I'll move approval.
It's been moved by Commissioner Marecki and supported by Commissioner Anderson to receive or to approve items 6 and 7. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Madam Clerk, we're rolling the agenda.
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I have none. Does anybody have any? Committee members? Okay, nobody's leaping out of their chair. What's next, Madam Clerk?
G, public comments.
Are we up on the WeberNet with this meeting?
Yes.
We are. So do we have anybody on Zoom that would like to have comment to the Health and Human Services Committee? Oh yeah, look at that, all those people. Okay, don't see anything there. Madam Clerk, did we get any emails?
No emails.
Is there anybody in the room that would like to have public comment? And then I'll go back to Zoom one more time. Anybody on Zoom like to have public comment? A day without public comment. Madam Clerk, what's next?
Adjournment.
Okay, without hearing objection, we stand